Hey there guys, Brian aka Invisible Doogie here, and I'm here for my first tutorial of Project Spark with you guys. So, in this tutorial, I am going to first show you how to make a zombie brain, and then second, show you how to track how many people you have left in the world and how many zombies there are in the world. So in my last video, I showed you my initial game, Zombie Punch, which was, it took me about only 8 hours to make, so it's pretty simple, but people seem to like it so far, which is great. So I'm making a second iteration, Zombie Punch 2, which, as you can see, is a lot more open world, has basically a lot more things that you can do in it, and so I want to spend the time finessing this because I really don't want to jump into my more ambitious game until probably closer to when the full Project Spark comes out, mainly because in order for me to make a 10 to 20 hour long Project Spark game, I'm going to need some level linking, which isn't here in the beta, but I'm assuming that'll be in the finished product because they've said things to that degree. So, anyways, let's start out with how to make a zombie. So this guy right here is going to be your first victim, and he will turn into a zombie when you kill him. Now, I'm going to walk you through specifically this brain for my game, but you can really easily tweak things around and make it so that this guy's on your side, and when someone else turns him and kills him, he turns into a zombie and starts attacking you. And you can mix and match and use this for a variety of other things if you want to. So let's jump into this guy's brain. Oh wait, that's not the brain, that's the settings. Okay, let's actually jump into the brain now. So what I did actually with the brain of this person is, you may notice, for those of you who have dabbled with brains for a while, all of this stuff, pretty much everything from line 1 to 10, is all just the pre-programmed enemy brains. So if you go up to the brain tile right up here, or the brain gallery, it gives you a pre-selected amount of brains you can choose from. Some of them you can add, like these ones I've added from mine and from other people's who've made some really interesting brains. And anyways, so if you just click on enemy brain, it'll automatically add that brain in. And so that's what line 1 to 10 are. And these basically are just telling the enemy that you are its enemy, it's team number 2, the player's team number 1. When it sees you, it's going to attack you. When you're 12 tiles away from it, it's going to move towards you and attack you. And so all that stuff, 1 through 10, is that's already pre-programmed in. So I'm not gonna walk you through that. Where the zombie stuff comes in is line number 11. So let's quickly talk about this. So I basically start all the zombie stuff once this character is dead. So once me is dead, and me, you just get from the objects brain tile area, and then is dead you get from the combat brain tile area. Then I did this shockwave, which you can find in the create tile area, and that's just to add a visual effect. So first, it masks the transition of bodies, and second, it visually tells you something has changed. And then all these other lines happen once this person is dead. So the very first thing, and now this is different than what I did for my last Project Spark, is basically once this person dies, they create a new person next to them. So I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the best way to have a person's skin turn pitch white, because that's kind of the mark of a zombie, is making their skin really super pale, making them look undead. And I just couldn't do that with that actual person. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a new person. I'll show you that new person in just a second, because that's the key part of this whole zombie thing. Lines number 13 and 14, I'm going to get to those when I talk to you about how to create basically a counter for how many zombies are on the map and how many people are on the map. Basically 13 and 14, what they do in essence is line number 13 says that when this person dies, then the amount of zombies should go up because this person has just turned into a zombie. And also when they die, the amount of people remaining should go down by 1. And then I end this with destroying this guy because I don't want I I don't want them to there to be two people on here. I know eventually because they are dead, they would be destroyed themselves. This just makes it a bit faster. So that's all that happens with this guy. You may notice there are multiple pages, but actually those are no longer useful to me. I just kind of figured this out just a bit ago, really, how to do this most effectively. So those are just extraneous pages. So let's actually talk about the zombie part. So this is just the guy who becomes the zombie. So this is the best way I could figure out how to do this. Now, if someone else knows a better way, please let me know. We're all kind of still learning on this because it's in beta. But what I had to do is I actually had to create a zombie. And I hid him in the mountain right here because I found you actually have to have this guy somewhere in the map. So I hid him all the way in the mountain, kind of underground, because you're never going to actually want to interact with this guy anyways. But this is my zombie. So he looks much more zombie-like. Pale white skin, black eyes, kind of tattered clothes. Well, I guess not really tattered, but going for that effect. And by the way, if you're curious how I changed all of this on him, that's just simply done by going to this settings tool right here, and then go to Character Studio, click on Clothing or Characters, and you hit Color Mode down here, and you can change the color of everything, which is great. So just in case you didn't know how to do that, now you know how to do that. So yeah, so what I did is I just changed his body skin to white, and that makes him look like the undead zombie that he is. So what I did is we had this zombie here hidden in the mountain, and he's a zombie. So anyways, when that other guy dies, what I just used is I did a create and then took the world picker and pickered this zombie here. And so when that guy dies, it pulls this zombie over to that location, or a copy of that zombie. And that includes the brain. So I can actually create the brain and all of the brain codes right here in this zombie hidden in the mountain, and that'll translate to every other zombie created as well. So what I did with the zombie is I did a bunch of once commands, and this basically means, this line should only be done once, because I don't want any of these to loop over and over again, because it's unnecessary. I'm just setting these kind of these set in stone once. I don't need to keep on setting them in stone. So basically this just starts right out the gate. In case they're holding anything, they unequip it, and actually this is kind of useless now. So you don't even need to worry about adding this line one, but make sure to add the once. So the default health of everything right now is 100. I'll probably play around with that. But for the zombies, I dropped their health down to 50 just to help balance the game a bit, so that zombies weren't as powerful as humans. I then also made the team equal team 1, which is my team. So they're my allies, but because in my game, zombies are on my side, and I'm turning everyone into zombies. Now, if you were creating a game where zombies were not on your side, you make them team number 2. And then I changed the land speed and land acceleration. Those can both be found in the movement tile areas. I changed those down to 10 and 4. And that was just so that the zombie is a bit slower than average. And so what I would do for you is just check in the properties of your creature or your person. Go to properties, go here, go to movement, and it'll tell you how fast they're moving and what their acceleration speed is, so that you can know what numbers to set to make your zombie go a bit slower. But I set mine as on land acceleration to 10 and on land speed to 4. So these are all they all happen once. They kind of set the stage for the zombie. The next thing I did is I wanted to make the zombie make kind of grunting zombie sounds when it's moving around. And so I played around with a lot of different ways for when they say sounds and kind of how they say them. And I actually found the most natural way of doing things is basically every time their movement changes from moving to not moving or not moving to moving, they play a sound then. And it actually kind of works. Like I'd say 95% of the time, it works in context, because if the zombie's fighting someone, they'll toggle between moving and not moving a lot. So, and then, when they're just wandering around, it'll also make it sound like they're, grunting every once in a while as well. So it works pretty well. And then what I just did is I did a play sound, and what I found is all the goblin sounds, the character goblin sounds, they sound kind of like zombies, so I went for that sound. Then I made sure I put a modifier of play the sound at me, the zombie, so that it's coming from the zombie and it's not coming from your, directly from your speakers, so that, if the zombie is behind you, it will sound in the game like it's behind you. And then I just reduce the volume down, to 50. Okay, so the next few lines, these next two lines are just so that when you are close to the zombie, it says brains to you. So I just did this. Actually, I kind of pulled from the follower brain, but this just sets it so that it understands that when the player is an ally, and it then sets, because it's talking about this player, this it thing basically refers to, and if you click on it, it kind of will tell you right there, it refers to the object most recently output by the win. So the most recent thing output by the win is player and allies. So it categorizes the player as the it. So you actually have to think of this backwards. Basically, the player equals my leader, and my leader is just a variable that was made for this. So it understands, basically from now on, this zombie understands that my leader equals you, the player. And that's really only necessary for depending on what you want to do with certain things. This one is just, once you're within 5 blocks of that zombie, then after, 4 2 seconds, it will say brains. So, a text box will appear on it for 2 seconds, and then that'll just go away and never happen again. Now, what I did is this I kind of also took from the follower tab, but it basically sets that when the zombie notices an enemy that's closer than 12 tiles, it starts moving at regular speed towards the enemy. Then I created an else, and what I did is I actually took this sort of from the Wanderer brain, but added a few things. So my biggest challenge is I wanted to create zombies that just roamed around the map, and whenever they happen upon humans, they attack them. But what I kind of found is every time I set it as random, the zombies ended up eventually walking into a wall and bumping into the wall, or kind of falling off the face of the map. So it just wasn't too reliable. So my solution, and it's not a perfect solution, but it's worked pretty well so far, is I had it so that basically after a countdown timer of 2, then for 15 seconds, this zombie will move at the speed of 0.2 towards enemies. So basically for 15 seconds, he's going to walk towards enemies. Then he will stop for 2 seconds and then continue that over and over again. So he'll stop for 2 seconds, move for 15 seconds, and keep on inching towards enemies. And first, what this means is, you do want those zombies to interact with people and actually attack people. So by making it so that they slowly walk towards enemies in that direction of enemies, it makes it so that they will eventually encounter them. And it also makes it so that they won't wander off the map and kind of do their own thing and be completely useless to you. And then I made it so basically once the zombie sees an enemy, then they move towards it. This is all kind of stuff that's again taken from either the follower brain or the enemy brain as well. This is just kind of standard of attacking things when they're close, and this is totally all taken from lines number basically 12 through 15 were all taken from that. One quick thing I forgot to mention is, for those of you kind of new to coding, there are parent codes and child codes. So you'll notice lines number 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all child codes of number 1. And what that makes it is so that basically this win is constant for all these, meaning that these can all happen only when this win happens as well. So it's kind of useful for, say you want to make it so that when someone's dead, then they do this one thing, but they also do all these things as well. And that's where this comes into play. And you can also even put other wins under wins. So like when someone is dead, they do this, and also when they're dead and they fly into the air, then they do this, so on and so forth. All right, so let's talk about the last part of a few extra lines of code I added. So what I have in my game as a kind of new interesting mechanic is when the zombie is attacking someone and they actually successfully attack someone, that slowly heals the player. And you can set the heal amount, to whatever you want. But this is, a pretty simple line of code where you just do me from the object tool, attack hit you just find from the combat tile, and then enemies you find from the brain or from the team tile. Then this last line number 17, makes it so that once this zombie is dead, they're dead for good, first off. But also, it reduces the amount of zombies that are on the map by 1. So if you want to continually track the amount of zombies, if you don't have this line in, then all the dead zombies, the really dead zombies, it won't be tracking them. So I think that about does it for the zombies themselves. Let's talk about actually, tracking the amount of people and zombies in a map. So let's get out of here. Okay, so let's go to this logic cube I made. And it's a pretty easy logic cube, but this will show you how to do variables. So getting into this logic cube. Okay, so let's start with the concept behind this. So what I want to do is I want to show a ticker that shows how many people are left and how many zombies there are. So what you have to do is when you're doing a countdown, you have to start with a certain number, and then you move downwards from there. If you're starting from 0 and going upwards, then you set it to 0. But what is important is making sure to include this global tile, because without that, none of these will work because they're not looking at the global numbers. They're only looking at that specific zombies numbers. So whenever you're working with numbers in general of like things that should be tracked over the entire map itself, if things aren't working for you, try putting a global tile in there. That's what I've always found, is when a global tile is put in there, when things aren't working right with trying to track something across the entire map, it's probably because you need a global tile. So what I did is, if you go to the values tile and numbers, then you can create number variables. And these number variables are a great way to store numbers and to work around with numbers. So that's what I just basically did. I created number variables for zombie army and people remaining. Now, when you create a number variable, it doesn't mean anything. You have to basically set what it means. So that's what I did right here. I set it to basically mean that people remaining, baseline, that equals 300. So let's start out with the amount of people remaining, that equals 300. And the amount of the zombie army, that number is equal to 0. So now I've basically set these number variables to these. But because these are number variables rather than set in stone numbers, you can play around with them because they're variables. So that is why, let's switch back to my first victim right here. That is why, let's go all the way down here to lines number 13 and 14. That's why we have global, because we're talking about global numbers here. But then we bring in that same variable and we do an increment by, which can be found in, I believe, the math. Yeah, the math tile. Increment by 1. That means increase that number, that variable, by 1. So whatever that variable is initially set at, it goes up by 1. And I set it at 0. So after this one dies, it becomes 1. After the second guy dies, it becomes 2, and so on and so forth. With people remaining, I had a decrement by 1. So that starts at 300. When this guy dies, it goes down to 299. And that is how those interact with each other. So that's how you basically you have to first set up an initial number for that number variable to equal, and then you can increment it and decrement it however you want, or with any sort of math in other objects, or even in this object as well. You could do that. But you have to have a baseline number to start with. And then what I just did is the next 2 lines, I just basically set to display that number. So if you go to, I believe it's the create. I always kind of forget which tile to go to sometimes. I'm sure other people have these problems where they kind of forget which tile to go to. But yeah, you go to create, interface, display. And then I just put text for humans remaining with a space afterwards. Then plus, so that it understands that I'm adding something along with that text. And then global, again, global number, not just the number by itself. Global people remaining. And then I set where on the screen that appears. And I did the same exact thing for the display here for the number of zombies. This whole game over thing, do not worry about this. I'll probably run you guys through how to do game over in one of my future tutorials as well. But that's it. So that was a in-depth explanation. But let's actually see how it runs now. So there we go. So you will see top left, top right. Got humans remaining 300, zombies 0 because I set that. And now let's see how this zombie, turning this person into a zombie works. So let's punch him to death right here. And bam, he works. And see, he's slowly walking towards the human over there. All right, well, I have bored you guys enough. Hopefully you got some useful information out of there. Let me know in the comments if there are any specific tutorials you want. And I will be giving you a lot more stuff coming from making this this level here for you. Hopefully this level should be ready in a few weeks. But anyways, catch you guys next time.